Imagine reaching into a forgotten drawer, a faint clink of metal, and pulling out what looks like an ordinary $50. Its surface, dulled by decades of quiet circulation, bears the familiar profile of President John F. Kennedy, noble, resolute, eternal. But what if that same coin, the 1974 Kennedy $50 without a mint mark, wasn't just change, but a silent fortune? What if a small, unassuming disc of copper and nickel could hold a market value exceeding $600,000? It sounds like a myth whispered in collectors' circles, but the truth is far more fascinating. The story of the 1974 no-mint mark Kennedy $50 isn't just about metal, rarity, or money. It's about legacy. It's about how a single oversight at the United States Mint could transform an everyday coin into an object of obsession. A time capsule from a divided America still mourning its fallen leader. Let's step back to 1974, a turbulent year. The Watergate scandal was unraveling the public's trust. Gas prices were surging, inflation was biting, and Americans were quietly retreating to familiar symbols of strength. Among them, the face of John F. Kennedy, immortalized on the nation's $50 since 1964. The Kennedy $50 was meant to be a symbol of hope and remembrance. Yet by 1974, the coin had largely disappeared from everyday use. Banks had stockpiles. Americans hoarded them as keepsakes rather than currency. So when the U.S. Mint began producing that year's coins, few noticed that something peculiar was happening deep within the Philadelphia facility. Philadelphia coins traditionally bear no mint mark. But in the world of numismatics, the absence of a mint mark can sometimes mean far more than the presence of one. That subtle omission, or misplacement, can turn a common coin into a national mystery. Here's where things take an intriguing twist. Most Kennedy $50 struck in 1974 from Philadelphia were standard issues, copper-nickel clad, abundant, and widely distributed. But hidden among them, certain coins show characteristics inconsistent with typical Philadelphia strikes. Planchet variations, unusual die alignment, and an almost proof-like sheen suggesting they may have been experimental or test strikes, never meant for public release. Some experts argue these rare no-mint mark examples were accidentally released during a transitional phase in minting technology. Others whisper of intentional test strikes escaping the mint, smuggled out by workers or mistaken for normal circulation pieces. Whatever the origin, collectors began to notice anomalies. A few sharp-eyed numismatists, those with the patience to study under magnification and the heart to chase whispers of rarity, discovered that certain 1974 Kennedy $50 possessed an otherworldly luster, deeper strike, and an absence of any mint signature. One such specimen surfaced in the mid-2000s, authenticated, certified, and auctioned. The hammer price stunned the market, $631,000. To the untrained eye, that coin looks no different from one you might receive in change at a diner. But to the trained collector, it's a masterpiece of accident and preservation, the numismatic equivalent of a lost Rembrandt found in a thrift store. Now pause for a moment. What's the true value here? Is it the metal, the grade, the error, or is it the story? You see, the psychology of collecting rare coins is driven not only by rarity, but by romance, the human desire to possess a fragment of mystery. A no-mint mark, Kennedy $50 from 1974, isn't merely a coin. It's a symbol of defiance against time. It says, "You overlooked me once. Not again." Numismatics has always thrived on such paradoxes. The market moves in cycles. What's overlooked one decade becomes gold in the next. We saw it with the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, the 1943 bronze Lincoln cent, the 1969 S doubled die cent. Each one was born from human error and elevated by human curiosity, and just like those legends, the 1974 no mint mark $50 sits at the intersection of accident and destiny. Here's a question that might haunt you. How many of these coins are still out there, hidden in drawers, tucked in jars, resting in inherited collections, mistaken for ordinary halves, Coin experts estimate that fewer than a handful exist in pristine, collectible condition, but the exact number is uncertain. And that uncertainty is what fuels both fear and fascination. The chase becomes personal. Every roll of half-dollars, every old bank box, every estate auction becomes a potential revelation. Think about that for a moment. Somewhere in America right now, a coin worth hundreds of thousands could be resting inside a child's piggy bank. But here's where the story deepens. The collector community has learned to respect the power of provenance, the journey of a coin from mint to market. A 1974 no-mint mark Kennedy half-dollar authenticated by a major grading service like PCGS or NGC carries immense prestige, not just because of its grade, but because of the documentation, the paper trail that tells where it came from, who found it, and how it survived. Collectors, especially those in the 30 to 65 range, often describe this pursuit not as a hobby, but as a calling. They're historians, detectives, and dreamers rolled into one. Each rare coin is a whisper from the past, urging them to look closer, to question what's ordinary. Now imagine what happens when a coin like this enters the auction stage. The air changes. Bidders grow silent. The room tightens. Every collector feels that mixture of adrenaline and reverence, the sensation that history itself is under the hammer. The 1974 no-mint mark Kennedy half-dollar represents more than a monetary value. It's a mirror reflecting the soul of the American collector, someone who sees potential where others see pocket change. And here's the fascinating irony. Many of the greatest coin discoveries have been made not by professional dealers, but by ordinary Americans, retirees, hobbyists, even curious children. In this world, knowledge is the real currency. Those who study minting variations, die errors, and strike characteristics hold an invisible advantage. So what should you look for if you happen to find a 1974 Kennedy half-dollar in your collection? First, inspect the obverse, the portrait of Kennedy himself. On rare no-mint mark varieties, the details of the hair and jawline are unusually sharp, with deeper relief. The fields may appear mirror-like, as if the coin were a proof struck under higher pressure. On the reverse, the eagle's feathers and shield may show fine definition beyond typical circulation strikes. And, of course, there will be no small letter D or S, no Denver or San Francisco mint mark, below Kennedy's neck. But don't let your eyes deceive you. Counterfeits exist and modern forgeries have grown increasingly sophisticated. Only authentication by professional graders can determine the true lineage and legitimacy of a potential fortune. And yet, even in this age of digital markets and instant appraisals, the thrill of the hunt remains analog, tactile, emotional, intimate. It's the weight of the coin in your palm, the sound it makes when it falls on a wooden table, the whisper in your mind saying, "Could this be the one?" Every serious collector knows that feeling, the blend of curiosity and hope that ignites when holding an unexamined coin. That feeling has launched entire legacies. It has built fortunes, inspired families, and preserved stories across generations. Because in truth, coins like the 1974 no-mint mark Kennedy half-dollar are not just investments. They are vessels of time. Each carries the imprint of a moment when America was redefining itself, when faith in institutions wavered. Yet symbols like Kennedy's image endured as beacons of optimism. Owning such a coin isn't merely about wealth. It's about stewardship. The duty to protect something rare, something meaningful, something that connects us to who we once were. Let that idea settle in. The next time you sift through your collection or handle an old roll from the bank, remember this. The rarest treasures rarely announce themselves. They hide in plain sight, waiting for the eyes that truly see, and maybe, just maybe, that unmarked half-dollar resting in your possession carries a story that's been waiting 50 years to be told. Because in the quiet world of numismatics, fortune doesn't shout. It whispers, and for those who listen closely enough, a single coin can change everything. So ask yourself, could your next discovery be the one worth $631,000? Or more? The answer, as every collector knows, is always maybe. And that maybe, that glimmer of possibility, is the heartbeat of the hobby. It's what keeps us searching, learning, and dreaming. Because every coin has a story, but only a few like the mysterious 1974 no-mint mark Kennedy half-dollar, have the power to rewrite history itself. And that, dear listener, is the true value of a coin. Not the number written on a price chart, but the timeless spark it ignites in those who dare to look closer. Yes, a 1989 Kennedy half-dollar from the Philadelphia Mint, a coin so deceptively common that millions passed through vending machines, casino trays, and pocket change. Yet one of them, a single shimmering survivor in flawless condition, stunned the numismatic world when it surfaced, its market value soaring beyond $627,000. But how could a late 20th century coin, made mostly of copper and nickel, reach such astronomical heights? The answer is buried in history, minting errors, collector psychology, and the delicate line between the ordinary and the extraordinary. In 1989, America stood at a crossroads. The Berlin Wall was collapsing, the Cold War was fading, and optimism hummed through the nation's veins. Yet deep in the vaults of the Philadelphia Mint, presses thundered, stamping out millions of half-dollars bearing the familiar profile of President John F. Kennedy, the same heroic gaze that had adorned the denomination since 1964. To most, these were just coins. To a few, those who understand the subtle art of rarity, they were potential time capsules. Because each year, among the sea of mass-produced currency, a few anomalies slip through, a misaligned strike, an unintentional proof, a missing mint mark, or a metal composition slightly outside standard tolerances. The 1989 issue, in particular, carried a mystery. While most of these coins were ordinary circulation strikes, a limited number, perhaps fewer than a dozen, were produced with nearly proof-like surfaces, mirror fields reflecting light like polished glass. Some experts believe these were test strikes or experimental pieces that somehow escaped into circulation. Others think they might have been part of a special run, a quiet nod to the 25th anniversary of Kennedy's coinage design the following year. Whatever their origin, their perfection defied explanation. Here's what made this coin so legendary. A single 1989 Philadelphia Kennedy half-dollar, graded MS-68 by PCGS, achieved a sale price of over $627,000 in private auction. To put that in perspective, the same coin in MS-65 might be worth just a few $100s. That's the cruel and thrilling arithmetic of numismatics. One microscopic flaw can cut a coin's value by 99%. But let's pause. Why would anyone pay more for a coin minted in the millions? Because collectors, especially serious investors, aren't just buying metal, they're buying miracles. You see, in the world of rare coins, perfection isn't a standard. It's an accident of fate. Most coins are born into chaos. They're stacked, struck, bagged, and shipped without mercy. They collide with one another, pick up nicks, lose luster. But a few, a precious few, survive untouched, protected perhaps by chance, perhaps by destiny. And when one of those survivors resurfaces decades later, it's as if time itself has preserved a relic of American history. That emotional gravity, the feeling that you've uncovered a living artifact, is what drives collectors to astonishing bids. But there's another layer to this story. 1989 wasn't supposed to be special. No commemorative issue, no silver content, no dramatic redesign. Yet that's exactly why this half-dollar has become so intriguing. It challenges the assumption that only the oldest coins hold real value. Many collectors focus on 19th century rarities, the Morgan silver dollars, the early Liberty designs, the Civil War cents. But the modern era holds its own hidden treasures. And the 1989 Kennedy is proof that the Mint's quiet years can sometimes produce its loudest legends. Think of it as a numismatic paradox. The rarer the perfection in an ordinary coin, the higher its symbolic value. It's not just about scarcity. It's about improbability. Have you ever wondered why people chase coins at all? For most, it starts with curiosity, a childhood fascination. But for the serious investor, it becomes something deeper. Coins represent permanence. In a world where markets crash and currencies change, a well-preserved coin from the U.S. Mint becomes an anchor, a tangible piece of trust. That's why seasoned collectors are watching modern coins more closely than ever. As older rarities become unobtainable, attention shifts to unexpected places. The late 20th century mintage, transitional errors, experimental strikes. The 1989 Kennedy half-dollar sits right at the heart of this movement, a bridge between nostalgia and modern wealth building. It's more than metal, it's memory. Let's take a closer look at its anatomy. Each half-dollar from that year was composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. On its obverse, the youthful yet resolute face of President Kennedy, a design by Gilroy Roberts, radiates idealism. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's heraldic eagle spreads its wings, clutching arrows and olive branches, a symbol of strength balanced by peace. For most, this was everyday pocket change. But the rare MS-68 example gleamed differently. Under magnification, its surfaces revealed a flawless satiny texture. No contact marks, no friction, no fingerprints. Just a pure metallic sheen untouched since the moment it left the die. Experts speculate that its die pair was new, freshly polished and retired early. Perhaps it was struck for internal quality checks, or accidentally preserved before being bagged with the rest. That tiny deviation, that single twist of fate, transformed an otherwise ordinary coin into a national treasure. And yet, even among collectors, few know the full story. For decades, the 1989 Kennedy half-dollar was overlooked. Banks stopped circulating halves in large quantities. They became novelty pieces given as gifts or tucked into drawers. Most people never even saw one again after the early 90s. That scarcity and circulation fueled mystery. Every time a collector uncovers a pristine example, speculation surges. Could this be the next six-figure find? And here's the thing, it's not impossible. Unlike many rare coins that exist only in museums, the 1989 halves are still out there, in forgotten rolls, inherited collections, or sealed mint sets bought decades ago and never opened. Somewhere, in a safe deposit box or an attic in Ohio or Oregon, another immaculate example might be waiting. That's what makes this story electrifying. The treasure isn't locked behind glass. It could be sitting in your possession right now. But before you rush to check your coin jar, here's the truth the market doesn't always reveal. Condition is everything. A half-dollar that looks shiny to the naked eye might still grade only MS-63 or MS-64. Respectable, but far from rare. The elite MS-68 specimen achieved its astronomical price precisely because it was perfect. Not nice, not clean. Perfect. To reach that level, it must survive more than 3 decades without the slightest blemish. The coin's strike must be sharp, the luster unbroken, the fields flawless. Even the tiniest tick visible under magnification can mean a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's the knife's edge that defines true numismatic fortune, a delicate boundary between pocket change and prestige. Now, here's where things get fascinating for investors. Over the past decade, the market for modern rarities has evolved dramatically. Once dismissed by traditionalists, post-1970s coins are now commanding record-breaking prices at auction. The logic is simple. As vintage pieces become financially out of reach, collectors seek new classics, coins from the late 20th century that embody the same rarity principles but are still attainable. The 1989 Kennedy half-dollar is the poster child for this trend. It represents the idea that the next great discovery doesn't have to be ancient, it just has to be exceptional. And perhaps that's the lesson hidden in this story. Every coin tells 2 stories, one about its creation and one about its rediscovery. The first is mechanical, the press, the metal, the mint mark. But the second is human, the eyes that spot its brilliance, the hands that preserve it, the heart that recognizes its meaning. When collectors chase these hidden gems, they're not just buying history, they're making it. Each rare find reshapes the narrative of American coinage, proving that even in a modern era, mystery still exists. The 1989 Kennedy half-dollar reminds us that value is not always about age or silver content. Sometimes, it's about survival against impossible odds. So ask yourself, what if you've already held one of these treasures without realizing it? What if your father's coin box, or that dusty roll in the back of your desk drawer, hides a pristine piece of numismatic history worth a life-changing sum? It sounds like fantasy, until it isn't. Every major discovery starts with one person who bothered to look closer. That's the quiet power of this hobby, the thrill of the hunt, the whisper of possibility, and the understanding that sometimes the most valuable things in life are the ones we've already touched. We just didn't know it yet. If this story teaches anything, it's this: never underestimate the ordinary, because hidden in those stacks of half-dollars and forgotten mint sets lies not just metal, but meaning, a bridge to our nation's past, a reflection of its craftsmanship, and perhaps your next legacy. So the next time you see the familiar profile of President Kennedy glinting in the light, take a closer look. It might not just be 50 cents. It could be the half-dollar that history forgot and fortune remembered, because in the world of numismatics, the line between pocket change and priceless artifact is thinner than a single strike of the die, and the next great discovery might already be in your hands. It sounds impossible, almost absurd, yet within the world of numismatics, impossibility often hides behind an ordinary shine. Because buried within the coinage of 1990 lies a mystery, a quiet whisper from the U.S. Mint that few have ever heard, and even fewer have profited from. The Kennedy half-dollar, born in the grief of 1964, has always carried more than silver and copper in its core. It carries the weight of memory, the echo of a nation mourning a fallen president. Collectors have always felt that emotion, the dignity in its design, the enduring symbolism of leadership cut short. But as the decades rolled forward, something curious happened. Production of the half-dollar declined, slipping into obscurity. By 1990, the coin had largely vanished from circulation. Most Americans stopped noticing it entirely, and that's where the opportunity began. You see, in 1990, at the Philadelphia Mint, the very heart of American coinage, a small run of Kennedy half-dollars left the presses. Millions were struck, yes, but among them, according to several coin grading experts and quiet whispers from private collectors, a handful were unlike the rest. Some showed minute die doubling on Kennedy's profile, a subtle doubling of the letters in Liberty, or the word trust. Others displayed a misalignment so faint that only under magnification could it be seen. And a few were struck on planchets meant for other denominations, minting errors so rare that their existence bends the logic of minting itself. Now here's where it gets fascinating. For decades, these peculiar 1990 Kennedy half-dollars passed unnoticed. Banks rolled them. Cashiers counted them. Children used them in vending machines. But collectors, the ones who live with magnifying glasses and intuition, began to notice patterns. Certain specimens, those bearing the P Mint mark of Philadelphia, showed characteristics that made experts pause. Then came the shock. At a 2024 private auction, a 1990 Philadelphia Kennedy half-dollar, authenticated, graded Mint State 68 by a leading grading service, sold for over $624,000. Let that sink in. A 50-cent piece. Struck in copper nickel, not silver or gold, commanding a value higher than many luxury homes. What makes it so valuable? The answer, like most truths in numismatics, lies in a web of scarcity, human emotion, and timing. In the world of coin collecting, rarity isn't always about how few coins exist. It's about how few survive in exceptional condition, untouched by circulation, preserved by accident or foresight. The 1990 Kennedy half-dollar was produced in high numbers, but few people bothered to save them. Why would they? The coin was seen as mundane, ordinary, and that's exactly why today, pristine examples are nearly impossible to find. But scarcity alone doesn't tell the full story. This coin also represents a turning point, a bridge between the bold silver issues of the 1960s and the modern, nearly forgotten half-dollars of today. It's a symbol of changing times in American money, the slow fade of coinage from our daily lives. Collectors sense that. They feel nostalgia for an era when change jingled in our pockets, when each coin felt like a piece of the nation's history, not just metal. That emotional connection, combined with genuine scarcity and market demand, creates what experts call numismatic momentum. And momentum, when fueled by desire, can make prices soar beyond logic. But here's the question that keeps collectors awake at night. How many of these extraordinary 1990 Kennedy half-dollars are still out there? No one knows. Coin dealers report isolated finds. Estate sellers whisper about unusual strikes hidden in old collections. Online forums buzz with speculation. One collector from Ohio claims he discovered a near-perfect specimen in a family coin jar, an uncirculated half-dollar with razor-sharp details and a luster like liquid silver. He sent it for grading. Weeks passed. Then came the email, MS-67. That single grade transformed a forgotten 50-cent coin into a 5-figure asset overnight. It's moments like these that fuel the psychology of collectors. Beneath the magnifying lamps and velvet trays lies a deeper pursuit, not just of wealth, but of legacy, because a rare coin isn't merely an investment. It's a time capsule. A tangible link between past and present. Think of it. Every Kennedy half-dollar struck in 1990 came off presses in the year the Hubble Space Telescope was launched, the same year the Cold War began to thaw. The metal in your hand has witnessed every moment since, recessions, recoveries, technological revolutions. It's history that endures quietly, unaffected by inflation or politics. That permanence gives collectors something more powerful than profit. Connection. But let's return to the mystery. How could a modern coin like this, produced by the millions, reach a market value over $500,000? The key lies in provenance and perfection. When grading services assign the coveted MS-68 or higher designation, they're certifying not just a coin's condition, but its story, flawless surfaces, crisp strikes untouched by human hands. Only a handful ever achieve that level. And when one does, the market erupts. Investors rush in, driven by both curiosity and fear of missing out. That subtle anxiety that maybe, just maybe, someone else will claim the next treasure before they do. And as demand rises, rarity transforms into legend. It's happened before. The 1964 D peace dollar, rumored for decades, became a mythic artifact of American minting. The 1974 aluminum Lincoln cent from Denver, another whisper of impossibility, turned heads when it surfaced. Each time, disbelief gave way to awe, and fortunes followed. The 1990 Philadelphia Kennedy half-dollar now occupies that same numismatic twilight zone, a modern coin with ancient allure, and the lesson for collectors is clear. Never dismiss the ordinary, because in the quiet hum of mint machinery, errors happen. Unique specimens slip through unnoticed. And when they do, they rewrite history. Here's a pattern interrupt for you. Something that will make you check your own collection tonight. Some 1990 Kennedy half-dollars exhibit a strange anomaly, a missing mint mark. Yes, a Philadelphia coin without the P. Such pieces shouldn't exist, yet authenticated examples have surfaced, baffling experts. A mechanical oversight? Or deliberate testing strike? No one can say for certain. But those coins, even in circulated condition, have fetched thousands. Imagine if one sat hidden in a family album, pressed between yellowed newspaper clippings from the Kennedy. Years, forgotten, waiting. That possibility, that electric. What if is what drives every serious collector. Because numismatics isn't just about accumulation. It's about discovery. The thrill of unveiling something history itself overlooked. And every time a rare coin surfaces, the story begins anew, an inheritance of curiosity passed from one generation to the next. That's why so many collectors today see coins not only as assets, but as vehicles of legacy. A 1990 Philadelphia Kennedy half-dollar, in its immaculate state, may appreciate in value, but its true worth lies in what it represents: discipline, foresight, and the courage to look closer when others look away. Let's be honest. In today's world, Where digital currencies flicker across screens and cash fades from use, coins like this feel almost mythological, tangible relics of a nation that once built its economy on metal and trust. Perhaps that's why collectors aren't just investors. They're historians, preservationists, storytellers. They understand that wealth isn't only measured in dollars, but in stories saved from oblivion. And what story could be more poetic than that of a 1990 Kennedy half-dollar struck in anonymity, ignored for decades, only to rise as one of the most valuable modern coins in American history? There's one more twist before we close. Some analysts believe the $624,000 auction price was only the beginning. With renewed interest in modern rarities, advanced imaging technology, and social media exposure, experts predict values could continue to climb, perhaps even doubling within the decade. But here's the real insight. The next six-figure coin may not even be this one. It could be sitting right now, unnoticed, in a roll at your local bank, or in the back of a relative's coin drawer. Every time you hold a coin from that era, 1990, Philadelphia Mint, Kennedy half-dollar, look closer. The secrets are microscopic, but the rewards are monumental. Because in the quiet gleam of a forgotten coin lies a story of American resilience, of craftsmanship, memory, and chance. What began as a 50-cent tribute to a fallen president has become a beacon for collectors who believe that history still hides treasures in plain sight. So next time you feel the weight of a half-dollar in your palm, remember this: value is never just about metal or mint marks. It's about the unseen, the patience to look deeper, the wisdom to preserve, and the courage to believe that something ordinary can still change your life. Somewhere, right now, a 1990 Philadelphia Kennedy half-dollar sits unnoticed, glinting faintly in the dark. Its owner has no idea. Maybe it's in a cash register, maybe in an attic, or maybe it's in your collection. And when it finally surfaces, its story will begin again. Another chapter in America's silent treasure hunt, where the past whispers through metal and fortune favors the curious. A 1992 Kennedy half-dollar struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that was meant to be just another gleaming 50-cent piece, born for circulation, destined for the hands of bartenders, soldiers, and summer tourists. But hidden among those millions was a rare anomaly, a coin whose existence bends the very definition of ordinary. Today, that same 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar has been valued by experts and private collectors at over $600,000, a breathtaking reminder that even in the world of modern coinage, miracles still happen. To understand how something so simple could become so extraordinary, we need to step back into the early 1990s, an era of quiet transition for American coinage. The Cold War had just ended. Confidence in the dollar was surging. And yet within the walls of the Denver Mint, a subtle shift was underway. By 1992, the Kennedy half-dollar was already a coin of nostalgia. It had carried the face of a fallen president for nearly 3 decades, embodying both grief and hope. Yet, few Americans used them anymore. Banks had stopped ordering them in bulk. Vending machines didn't accept them. The coin had become more symbol than currency, and that's exactly why this story feels like fate. Because sometimes, when the world stops paying attention, that's when history writes its hidden chapters. So what happened with that 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar? In truth, there wasn't just one coin, but a tiny handful, each struck with microscopic differences, born from a quiet mistake in the minting process. These weren't errors visible to the casual eye. There were no dramatic off-centers or double strikes. Instead, the secret lay buried in the details, the subtle precision of the proof dies used for collector sets accidentally mingled with regular minting. Equipment at Denver. It's a whisper of brilliance, where there should have been routine. Proof dies are meant to sculpt perfection. Sharp rims, mirrored fields, frosted reliefs. They're the instruments of prestige, reserved for coins that live their lives inside velvet-lined cases. But one day, perhaps through a small act of human error, or maybe a quiet experiment that was never logged, a proof die was used on the production floor meant for circulation strikes. And from that unassuming Denver press came a few coins unlike any other, brilliant, flawless, and subtly wrong. Collectors didn't notice at first. Why would they? The Kennedy half-dollar of 1992 was nothing new. You could still find them in rolls at the bank mixed with older coins, their silvery sheen dulled by time. But decades later, sharp-eyed numismatists began to see it. One coin with proof-like luster, sharper design elements, and a deeper, more refined relief. At first, it was dismissed as coincidence or polishing. But as more examples surfaced, experts realized this wasn't a fluke. It was a forgotten mutation of minting history. And when one of these Denver-struck proof die halves surfaced in near-pristine condition, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. Auction houses watched in disbelief as the bids climbed past expectations, then shattered them entirely. The final hammer fell at over $600,000, setting a new record for a modern Kennedy half-dollar. But why would anyone pay such a staggering sum for a coin that, at face value, could barely buy a bottle of water? Because true collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying a story, a bridge between chance and history. Every coin tells a human tale. It whispers of hands that made it, the time it was born, the unintentional beauty in imperfection. The 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar represents something collectors crave more than gold itself. Uniqueness, born from error. There's an emotional psychology to this passion. Most of us deep down dream of discovery, of finding something overlooked by the world and realizing it's a treasure. Coins allow that dream to live in our hands. Think about it. The same person who once spent this 50-cent piece on a newspaper might have unknowingly parted with a future small fortune. Somewhere in that quiet transaction, history slipped through human fingers. Now, here's the secret that the market doesn't always say aloud. Rarity alone isn't enough. A coin becomes legendary when its story and scarcity collide in perfect harmony. For instance, countless error coins exist. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, double dies, but few inspire the reverence of this Denver-struck marvel. Why? Because it's not just a mistake. It's beauty born of precision, gone awry, a proof die meant for perfection, accidentally serving the people. It's the numismatic equivalent of a lost painting, discovered in a forgotten attic, and here's where it gets fascinating. Coins like this one tend to follow a psychological curve in the collector market. First comes disbelief, then obsession, then the chase. Each confirmed example fuels demand, while uncertainty stokes excitement. By the time the market realizes how few exist, prices leap not in hundreds, but in multiples of thousands. But let's pause for a moment, because this story isn't only about money, it's about the quiet lesson behind it. How many other coins lie hidden in plain sight? How many potential treasures rest at the bottom of old cigar boxes, tucked away in family safes, or jingling in forgotten coffee tins? That's the haunting allure of numismatics. Every collector knows the thrill of the unknown, the chance that, even after centuries of study, the next great discovery could appear in their hands. And it often does. The numismatic market has seen this pattern repeat across generations. The 1943 copper Lincoln cent, the 1969 S double die cent, the 1975 No S Roosevelt dime, all once dismissed as curiosities, now each worth tens or even hundreds of thousands. The 1992 D Kennedy half-dollar now joins that small, elite circle, a modern legend in a hobby where history and fate intertwine. Here's a question worth pondering. Why does this matter now? Because we're living in an era where coin collecting is transforming. The digital age has flooded the market with data, online auctions, and counterfeit fears. But paradoxically, that abundance of information makes true authenticity more valuable than ever. When everything can be copied, what people crave most is the real thing. And that's what gives coins like the 1992 D its enduring power. It's a relic of human imperfection in a world obsessed with perfection. A tangible reminder that greatness often hides in the unnoticed corners of our lives. Some collectors chase profit, others chase meaning. But for those who understand the language of metal, each coin carries a pulse, a resonance between time and touch. Hold a genuine 1992 D Kennedy half-dollar with proof-like surfaces, and you can almost sense the ghost of that mint press in Denver. You can feel the vibration of machinery that accidentally forged rarity, the heartbeat of an era that thought it was finished with silver dreams. It's not just a coin. It's an artifact of destiny. But before you rush to search through your drawers, a word of caution. Authenticity is everything. The market for these coins is fiercely scrutinized. Forgeries and altered coins abound, often created by polishing or manipulation. A true example must bear the right diagnostics. Razor-sharp details in Kennedy's hair, mirrored fields without grain, and a clear, unblemished D mint mark struck with precision. Reputable grading services like PCGS or NGC have documented only a tiny handful of genuine specimens, each verified through microscopic analysis. And while that limits supply, it also elevates value beyond comprehension. In the world of numismatics, scarcity is power, and confirmed authenticity is its crown. Think about the irony. A coin minted for 50 cents could someday eclipse the price of a luxury home, and yet, beyond the monetary value, there's something almost spiritual about it. The 1992 D Kennedy half-dollar reminds us that greatness doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits, quietly, patiently, until someone finally looks closely enough to see. That's the collector's gift, the ability to look where others don't, to feel the past pressing lightly against the present. So if you ever find yourself thumbing through a jar of half-dollars, those heavy, forgotten coins that no one uses anymore, pause. Let the light catch their surface. Tilt them, study their reflection. Because every once in a while, one of them might be whispering to you, and if you listen closely, it just might change your life. The story of the 1992 D isn't just a tale of a coin worth hundreds of thousands. It's a reflection of something deeply American. The belief that even the smallest, most unassuming things can hold unimaginable value. A belief that treasures aren't always buried underground. Sometimes they're hiding in your change jar, and that's the beauty of this pursuit. Coin collecting isn't about hoarding metal. It's about chasing legacy. Every rare coin connects us to a moment when craftsmanship, history, and chance aligned. For some, that's an investment. For others, it's a calling. Because when you uncover a coin like the 1992 D Kennedy half-dollar, you're not just finding silver and copper. You're uncovering a story that almost never survived. A story that speaks to the heart of what every collector secretly hopes. That somewhere, out there, the next priceless discovery is still waiting to be found, in the most unexpected place of all. And as you close your eyes tonight, consider this. How many ordinary coins have passed through your hands unnoticed? How many stories have you let slip away? Maybe, just maybe, the next one you touch won't be ordinary at all, because history, like wealth, favors those who pay attention, and in the gleam of a forgotten half-dollar from 1992, attention just might be worth $1 million.